Chris Jericho and all the greatest. Your top 5 dead or alive, the broader stages like WrestleMania, all in and all out. NXT takeover, what the business about? Putting fans in the stands and the millions at home. Like The Rock versus Stone Cold, we're stealing the show. Wrestle Phantom Radio and Disruption Network with Dippin' Donuts. ICW, we make fanatics flipping go nuts. Every time we're live.
You are watching Disruption Network, and this is Wrestle Fandom Radio, the greatest podcast you've never heard.
Featuring two ugly guys and a guest.
Stu's with me as always, and as you can see, we have a guest on. This is Justin Parker, and if you don't recognize his face, there he is. And if you don't recognize his face, you should, because Justin was the cameraman for 2CW, which is how I recognized him when I saw him in a store.
It's true. It's true. Which is way too much for my ego, by the way. You can't be doing that. Anytime somebody says, hey, weren't you that guy? The whole day is blown. I'm going to talk about it with everybody. Really happy to be here, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. So obviously, someone who worked at a company that, you know, had a strong 10-year run. We just definitely kind of want to pick your brain and see, you know, how you got started, just everything that had to do with you in 2CW. So how did you even end up becoming like the cameraman, or how did you get started with the company?
Yeah, to kind of condense 10 years into a short form kind of thing and not dominate the conversation is really difficult. But long story short, there was a house show, a live event at the Utica Odd. It was 2006, and my dad and I were there. And I've grown up a wrestling fan my entire life, like most people. Always loved it, watched it religiously, had my favorites, whatnot. And we got handed a flyer for a 2CW Squared Circle Wrestling show. And we got talking with the guy a little bit. And my dad, KJ Parker, Jack Trades, whatever you want to call him, he is notorious for just being a carny guy. He's always pretended he was a wrestler. So he kind of tried to weasel his way into working and helping flyer and do some things. And they needed a ring crew. And that was how I did that. I was 15. August 18, 2006 was the first show that I ever worked as a ring crew guy.
Okay, so this is where I fail as in being any type of host. Jack Trades is your dad.
Yes.
That's
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
you're supposed to act surprised, Garrett. You're supposed to act surprised. You're supposed to know.
I am surprised. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not. I wasn't sure. I didn't know what his real name was. I don't know. I saw him out at like a mall or something. I was like, I'm using my swear card. Are you Jack fucking Trades? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, so I talked to him for a couple minutes, and like, I seriously had no idea that Jack Trades was your dad. That's fine.
Same situation. You gassed his head up, and he probably came back to me and told me about it immediately. Yeah, yeah. That's that's my dad, and he helped break me. You know, it's a weird thing. I was a teenager, and I've always kind of been that wild dude, the wild card. So that was a thing that really set me straight. You know, like being able to work those shows and just pick up, you know, the wrestling ring and hold something that I'd always wanted to be in. And I always told people I wanted to be in wrestling, and I got told a lot that was a silly thing. And I got to live my childhood dream for 10 years, you know, not just do it on a small scale, but also get to kind of have that ripple. And that's, I mean, I wouldn't be talking to you guys right now if it wasn't for it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's what I tell most people who like want to get involved in wrestling. Show up and pick up the heaviest thing possible and just make yourself useful, make yourself an asset. Nobody's going to turn away help from somebody who's not there to get their own business over. So we were just there to do the thing. And I remember asking this, I asked my dad, I'm like, well, what if the show sucks? And he's like, well, you know, we got a story. We got to get in a ring and do this thing. And that's that. We had a couple of laughs. And King Kong Bundy and Two Cold Scorpio were on the show. Scorpio wrestled Slick Wagner Brown, and they wrestled a bunch over the years. But that was just pure wrestling. You know, and in 2006, wrestling on television wasn't really all that hot. You know, it wasn't something, and I could really try to go back and remember what was going on at the time and what happened in those years, because once I started working there, I stopped watching any sort of wrestling on television.
Yeah, TNA might have been the only good thing going at that point.
Yeah, and that's And some of their booking decisions, they're kind of like WCW, in my opinion. Sorry to butt in. Just
please.
booking decisions kind of questionable in TNA, but had a good, talented roster.
Yeah.
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 Like you could have taken the entire X division and just made a show based on that.
That's, in my opinion, that's all they should have been. And when it boils down to it, they should have stuck with that. They'd still be going super strong if, but.
Yeah, we were kind of into, that was when they were doing the pay-per-views, like a little bit before that. And it was kind of hard to get, so it became that kind of like, ooh, this is different. It's an alternative. That word gets thrown around a lot as far as wrestling goes. People want alternatives, and that's why companies like AEW and NWA and ROH do what they do as far as numbers. But Abyss was on one of the first shows I ended up working, and that was when he had a short title run, and they were still NWA TNA, and he brought the NWA belt. And for what, like, I've always been a kind of student of the game. Like, I love the history, so I've been very, like, I love guys like Terry Funk and Jack Briscoe and Harley Race and the old school of it. So to get the belt, like, even though, it's a different version than all of these guys have held, it was like, oh, I lost my mind. This was everything I'd ever dreamed of. But yeah, to kind of hot shot, like, so it was a couple years later that they needed a camera guy. Jay Freddy was the camera guy for a short time.
Oh, okay.
He'd been training at the school because that's kind of what happens. They end up security or, working kind of spots on the show, and he got bumped in and he had a match the next show. So it's like, oh, we need somebody who's here all the time, and consistency is key. So I was there all the time, and they knew they could trust me. They watched it and they didn't hate it the first time, I guess. And it was awesome. I shot shows from, I want to say 2008 until the closing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, cause as far as I remember going, like, you were the camera guy, like, you were just the guy I kept seeing doing the camera work. So, I mean, and to see somebody and then remember their name, like, it's the names aren't as good anymore, but like, I do not forget faces ever at all. So even like all the years later to see you, what was it? Last year or a year and a half ago when I saw you in the store, it was just like, where are you? So that it was, but obviously you were there around the ring enough, for people to recognize you. So that's gotta be cool. Do you get recognized other than like?
No, it's always weird when it happens. I mean, it was because we did run shows in Utica, which is my hometown. It wasn't one of our biggest towns, unfortunately. I wish it did better, but yeah, it would happen occasionally. You'll be out somewhere. It's always somebody. I usually am approaching the person with a wrestling shirt because it's kind of rare. Even though they're sold in Hot Topic now, you see somebody and you kind of have this innate kinship, like you guys like the same thing. It's like the same band.
Dude.
That's not like not the big well-known bands that like Metallica or whatnot. Nothing against them, but everybody's got their shirts. So if you see somebody with a Fugazi shirt, you're like, oh, that dude's pretty cool.
That dude knows music.
No, I know. I definitely know how that is because I don't have a lot of wrestling shirts, but I got a couple, and I wear my Champa, the black with the yellow American flag shirt. I love that shirt. I wear it around Rome, Utica. I get nothing. But me and our buddy Phil went out to Karis Destiny USA before the holidays, and I wore my Champa shirt, and I had my big old jacket on, so you could barely tell what it was. But no one ever said anything to me about it until I went to Syracuse, and I'm walking around like some I guess you'd say nerdy stores, and so many people were like, "Bro, Tommy Champs." I was like, "That's what I call him. That's dope. You're my friend. I don't know your name." And but yeah, I feel. I know what you mean, man. It's a great feeling. Feel that kinship with just random people.
It's immediate conversation starter. And Tommaso is a great dude and a great wrestler. I'm surprised that Rome didn't pop for it because he had a really, really excellent match with Sami Callihan there. They were very proud of that match.
And I've told this story
Was that
here
the match?
before.
Was that the match where Callahan scared the shit out of me?
Nah, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that was a different one because I went to that. I was sitting at that show alone, and I was sitting in, I think either the first or the second row, and I didn't know that Ciampa was there. And when he came out, I was like literally yelling and screaming. I was so excited to see him. And I was like, and he came walking by me, and I was like, your finisher is the greatest finisher. And he just like looked at me, and he kept walking. And when he hit the finisher and won, he rolled over and like put his arm through the second rope and just looked right at me. And I was like, like I was just losing it. And it was like one of my favorite things to see. Like just, oh God, it was awesome. That's awesome.
That's the little stuff that separates like the real pros from the weekend warriors, you know, like,
right.
Well, you can be as good as you want to be, but it's that little detail that connects with you as a fan that makes you go back. That makes you buy the shirt and go back to the show and have a guy to root for. Because when you have a dog in the fight, you're obviously going to show up to every fight.
Yeah,
and that's wrestling, man. Like that's wrestling. I learned so much over the years. So like shooting the shows was one thing, but because I was there all the time, like we really were a tight knit group.
right.
And we all did hang out outside of wrestling, and we all shared other interests, and we were all sharing in this one common moment. But like the word family gets tossed around all the time, and that's kind of overblown in wrestling with all the good brother nonsense. But yeah, like that's really how it was. I still talk to a lot of those guys to this day, and I still have nothing but love and admiration for what they've done. I was so glad to be able to. My job was to try to make them look as good as possible. I wish that things were a little bit further along in the timeline, because if we were in a day and age where streaming live wrestling would have been a lot easier,
yeah, man,
we could have been doing more. And
Right.
that's unfortunate, but had a good run. No complaints.
No, it was an epic run. I mean, even right down to the last show, the last show was just, yeah. I mean, I was so sick that I could not drive from Rome to there. And my father actually drove me. And so I could just go and put myself up against a wall and just watch it. Cause I was just like I just couldn't, I could barely function, but I had to go. I had to go.
Glad you made it. Yeah, glad you made it. It
was awesome. And I was like, I need to meet Too Cold Scorpio. I was like, I don't know if it's ever going to happen again. And
DDP, bro.
Wicked nice. And I just got to see everybody. And it was just,
man. Too Cold was like one of the coolest dudes, like always and forever. I mean, I saw him at other shows. Like I think it was like Dragon Gate or something, and he knew he didn't know. Like it's one of those things. Like he knows what promotion I'm from. He doesn't know what role I have, but like he knows you're cool, and he's glad to take some time and hang out with you. He came out to us to Tully's with us, and to see Scorp sitting at the bar at Tully's with his cheaters on, it was like a surreal moment, because he was on that first show that I was on, and to be able to have him come back years later, and dude has never missed a step. Like he is criminally underrated as a performer in the ring, because to be doing what he does, to do a moonsault leg drop at his age, but that's absurd. That's our truth level. Yeah, he dropped it in 15 at the last show. Yeah, he definitely
at the last show he did it.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I have no doubt that he would have done it at any other show too, because
he's criminally underrated everywhere that he's gone, in my opinion. Like ECW, criminally underrated. WWF turned him to Flash Funk. I still cheered for him, but
only so much you can do. Yeah.
I feel like the big leagues underrate him, but like anyone like on our level is just like, oh, that man's a
nerd
cop.
level.
You know what I mean? Like it's like
nothing but respect.
Yeah,
that
awesome.
Last show, like I tried to find a suitable background, so I got the poster for the last show, and like looking at the poster itself, it's weird to think that like over the evolution. In the beginning, we weren't running big budget shows, which is a great thing to do, but because it pops people, and you can say that you saw the guys when they were performing on a basketball court. But the early days, we weren't running these big budget shows, so it was all story. It all had to be, something compelling to get the diehards, because, we would get guys like Abyss. Spike Dudley really put the company on his back in the early days, just feuding with Jason Axe and Jimmy Olsen and all these other guys, and putting everything he could into it to try and make the company, to give it credibility, because that's hard to come by in wrestling now. That true blue, like old school credibility. We had Spike and we had Zachary Springate, who was trained by Killer Kowalski. Those were our two like okay, we're solidified in the wrestling community as legit, not just money marks.
Right.
Because there's tons of them, tons of money marks, and New York State's flush with them too. You know, it's unfortunate. There's some really good guys trying to do good work, but you know, it's a far cry from what certain people think the business should be. But anyway, yeah, the story was really what had to hook people, and we had great characters on a local level. But what ends up happening is, you know, you put Brody Lee over, and he's this great guy, and it's, he's signed away.
Right.
Jimmy Olsen was a great heel. Him and Colin Delaney working together as the Olsen twins. I mean, Colin, great dude, had to go away and come back. You know, Sammy Callahan had to go away. It's Rich Swann. It just became hard to hold talent.
Yeah.
It's expensive. New York is flights are the killer.
Yeah.
But,
you know, what's funny is one of the first shows, maybe even the first show that I went to, you know, I went in and I'm dumbfounded. It's funny you said that Jay Freddy was the cameraman, because the first show I went to, he was the champ.
Yep.
And it's like, I turn around and then there's the champ, and I'm like,
that's awesome.
Here's the champ of a company. I never been to a show like that. You know, I'd never been to an indie show that was like that. You know, so it was really cool to see something that was like that. And it just, you know, shit, where was I? Sorry, my phone started ringing. I had to swipe it off there.
Yeah, it was very grassroots. Yeah, no, it's very. So the first show was a Rome show. Was that the DDP show? Which show was that?
No, that was later on. Oh no, that's where it was. I was saying so. I'm there with Stu in one of the earlier matches in the night. Kevin Owens comes out with a Mr. Wrestling, or you know, Kevin Steen comes out with a Mr. Wrestling T-shirt, and people are booing him and everything. And he gets in and he starts wrestling. And I looked at Stu and I was like, this dude.
He was hilarious.
I'm like, I was like, and I said it to him. I go,
it's so funny.
Is going to make it, and it was the first thing I ever said about him.
Yeah,
and you know, and every show that we would go to, it's just like we'd walk up to him and we'd just be talking to him, and he'd just be like, "Oh, hey guys, what's up?" Like he recognized us, and we'd always go back, and you know, like Stu got one of his shirts one time, you know, right when we got there, and he wrestled.
Was it the
right
Panda
before the intermission, and he lost. And
he lost the belt, right?
Yeah, I think so. And then we go back to his thing, and Stu goes, he goes, "You lost. I want my money back." And Kevin goes, "Oh, sorry, but I already spent it on drugs." Like,
and I didn't know Kevin before that. So just that
it was awesome.
Kind of. I loved going to 2CW shows and shows in general, just to see these guys, and then to find out that they moved on, because I had stopped watching wrestling, like main wrestling, for quite a while. And then I came back to it when AJ entered the Rumble. That got me back into it. And I saw this Kevin Owens guy. I'm like, isn't that Kevin Steen? And just to see them make it, no matter our feelings about WWE and all that, because I could go on for days about why I love it and why I hate it. But just to see him make it and then pop up and beat John Cena, the Golden Poster Boy. I mean, everyone's talked about it a million times, but it was very nice to see, to, like you were saying, to be that guy, be like, I watched him wrestle in a little tiny, you know, hockey arena in Rome, New York. That's great.
Yeah. He was pure class. And it was one of those things where that was later on when we started kind of like, we still had our homegrown guys. We had our Sean Carrs, our Jason Axes, our Isis Effexes, but we were trying to branch out and just put on the best shows possible and kind of pop the towns and mix those two worlds together to try and maximize it. And Kevin was at a point in his career where he was working a lot more singles. He tagged with El Generico in our tag team title tournament early on. I can't remember what year it was, but that was a great time because I had pushed for those guys. I had kind of been, you know, one of those guys. I just kind of championed them, you know, because I was a loudmouth and I felt like I could say these things. But I found out that, like, you don't get paid in wrestling. Most of the time, there's not a lot of money. So there was never like a paycheck. I never got an envelope at the end of the night, nor did I ever deserve one or ask for one, because I was paid tenfold with experience and the ability to live my dream. Yeah, that's, to me, there's no dollar amount that could ever be put on that. But every now and again, Josh was all about making dreams come true. He kind of recognized that, but also would do it when it's good for the product. So he knew that I was really keen on these guys because I had started going to Ring of Honor shows and paying attention to more indies. And he booked these guys for the tag team title tournament. And I was stoked. So at the end of the show, my dad takes me to the back, Jack Trades, and there's Steen and Generico. And I'm talking to Sami Zayn now. And he's like, hey, man, I heard that you had a big role in me coming in today. So I just want to say thank you. And I'm like, yeah, thank you so much. I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. Like, yeah, thank you. Great match tonight. You're going to wrestle tomorrow. That's great. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, can I buy a T-shirt? He's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. And like, how much is it? He goes, $20? And Kevin just looks at him and goes, why'd you say it like a question? What's that? If he says 20 is okay, are you going to charge him 25? Like, what's the deal? So he's funny all the time. That's
Right.
But that was really cool for me. And years later, when he came back and stole the title, and just, I mean, he became, and that's part of the testament of like why we could get guys like that and why we could have those types of relationships. It was fun because nobody's putting handcuffs on you. You can do whatever you want. The guys have creative freedom to be themselves.
Yep. Right.
And B, Josh is just a good time. People really liked him because he's not all wrestling. He's not all just trying to kiss your ass or anything. He's just trying to put on good shows and have a good time. We tried to make it like a party, and everybody was in on the party, you know?
Right.
So when people like you came through the door, you felt like, oh, this is, yeah, I can get down with this. And when people are nice to you.
When there was a 2CW show coming, I was always like amped and knew I was going to have a good time. So was there any other, like, so obviously, like you just said, you know, Sami Zayn, you know, El Generico, was there anybody else that came through the door that you were just like, oh my God, I can't believe this person is here. I can't believe I'm meeting this person.
I mean, like there were so many people. So like the ones that kind of really jump out at me would be like that instance was a really big thing for me. Rob Van Dam was a huge, I mean, I loved ECW.
Awesome dude.
Van Dam and Jerry Lynn matches were those things. Like I had that ECW Hardcore Revolution cassette tape or VHS, and it had Van Dam versus Jerry Lynn on it, and that just changed how I looked at wrestling. Like that match, I will watch that match 7 days a week. So when we booked him with 2 weeks notice, you know, I got a phone call with my dad. We were out somewhere, and it's Josh, and he says, hey, we can get Van Dam on this Monday night for X amount of dollars. It's substantially cheaper to get him on a Monday. I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, where would we do it? It's like Binghamton. I'm like, yeah, I think we could sell it. And in 2 weeks' time, we had the show and announced the show. Sammy had his match, and Sammy Callahan. Yeah, I mean, you know, nice enough guy. Roddy Piper. You know, we kind of had, like, Piper's very eccentric. I think that's well documented. He's kind of an odd duck. So there was kind of a confrontation, but that was also when he had the camera crew following him. So part of that is just, you know.
Yeah, show.
Yeah, he's just being
possibly.
But how he is with fans, I mean, I've met him several times, thankfully, and he was just the coolest dude in the world. So that was very cool. Anytime Hacksaw came through, that was always great because he's just such a pro. Matt Hardy, same thing. Just real pro class guys that you always like seeing.
I was going to say, how about a favorite homegrown talent?
In terms of like the guys that were there at every show and live locally and went through the school and those types of things.
Exactly.
Yeah, Jason Axe, he's probably at the top of my list. He's a great dude, but he's also a great wrestler, and his career work to see, because he was on the first show that I ever saw, so he was there since the beginning. And to see his feud with Spike Dudley, to see his work with Jay Freddy, I've never seen somebody just get pure heat by being himself. You know, he wasn't. Heat. Yeah, and people really just did not like him, and I could see why. But those matches towards the end with Johnny Gargano were incredible. And you would never put somebody in a situation to do 20 or 30-minute Iron Man kind of style matches unless you knew he could handle it. And that was where they knew that he could handle it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't want anyone coming out purple.
Yeah. When he did the DDT on the cinder block, Jason DDT Johnny Gargano on the cinder block, and I was in. You know, it's one of those things where it's hard to. It loses its luster. You know, it becomes because you are behind the curtain and you can see so much of the going on. It's hard to put on these really great shows and then keep that kind of high and morale going for the next 6 hours while you break the ring down, drive 3 hours back to Syracuse to load it into a storage unit or a pretzel factory, which is where the school was one time. Random buildings.
Right.
There's a lot of work that goes. So all of that to say that it kind of embitters you. It's very popular to be bitter around wrestling, but you have to remember why you loved it in the first place.
Right. One of my favorite 2CW memories happens to be when Dreamer won the title in Rome.
Oh, that's great.
If you were at all these shows, was that one of the biggest pops that you remember?
Yeah, I put that up there. That show was just incredible from top to bottom.
Good.
Yeah, Josh had kind of pitched the idea. He's like, well, what if we do this? Because he wanted to work the angle with Ando and Axe. Axe was the longest rating 2CW World Heavyweight Champion, and Ando was on his heels. And there was one time, it was the pay-per-view in Watertown where Ando was doing the back, like I think it was the first time he was coming in and going out and coming in and going out. And the chants were picking up steam. Maybe it was Syracuse, but Strangler Steve King looks at Josh and I, and he goes, "That's your Cena." And it's like, okay, well, what does he mean by that? I didn't really get it at the time, but like, yeah, he was putting asses in seats, and he was selling merch, and people felt a way about him. They either wanted to see him, we want Captain, or no, we don't.
Yeah,
that's all there's really there is to it. So
he was the Cena.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's only certain parallels there, but so we wanted to kind of. It was like, okay, well, here's this idea. We can get an Axe thing going. They can have a match. That'd be cool. Tommy Dreamer's a great guy, always willing to do business. So let's field this idea to somebody else. So we go in the back, and there's Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian were at that show. And we asked them. We said, hey, what do you think about this idea? And they're like, oh, yeah, I think it would go well. You're just trying to get the pop? It's like, yeah, we're trying to get the pop, and the story will build itself. So we'll get it to the next show, and you'll drop the belt, and we'll be fine. Sounds good to us. So totally fine. Like, all right, cool. We got the seal of approval from Christopher Daniels, who's been in the business since like forever.
Since I was first starting to watch wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 96. Like 96. I mean, I remember him supposedly was going to be the higher power in like 97 for that whole thing. And
right. Yeah. Has a cameo in Beyond the Mat.
Yeah. Christopher Daniels is definitely a favorite of mine. Garrett can tell you that. Love that dude.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. So and again, such a pro. And Frankie Kazarian had a connection through the Kowalski. So Strangler knew him. They're friends. So we trusted their opinions. And they wrestled the Bucks that night. And that was again, like the Bucks. I first saw the Young Bucks in like 2011 at a Dragon Gate show. And they were doing the same stuff like that they're doing now. They're just going out there and stealing the show. But they were trying to be these white meat babyface thing. And, they're wrestling the Japanese guys. And they're having incredible matches, but getting on the stick after, doing the typical promo type thing. So I think when they started bucking the system, that was when Josh was like, this would be cool. That's pretty good. And we got them in, and they're just great guys. And that was it. I was thrilled because those guys will go out and steal the show every time and sold more T-shirts than anybody.
Right.
Well, I mean, for like, I know they didn't start Bullet Club, but I mean, Bullet Club, that merch sold itself, and they were definitely a part of that. At one point, it made up like more than I can't remember the exact number, but it was like some astronomical amount of money for Hot Topic because they sold them in the U.S. at Hot Topic stores.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Bucks can definitely, well, the Elite in general can definitely move some merch no matter what they do.
Yeah, they seem to be really working that market with the AEW merch. So I think Brody Lee has like 5 shirts, which is cool, but it makes my choices difficult. I'm holding off on placing an order.
Nice.
But yes, to answer your question, sorry, that was like one of the biggest pops I've ever heard. And Tommy is a heartfelt guy, so he definitely was serious in what he said. Very, very genuine.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, I remember I was front row. I happened to get, a buddy was just like, oh, I got an extra seat. You want to come? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that'd be great. And it was, I was front row. It was just the greatest thing, like, ever. I lost it. And the whole place just, it sounded like there was thousands of people there, and there was a few hundred. And it's just, it was incredible.
One of the few times the acoustics of that room actually helped us.
Yeah.
Because most of the time when you go into a place like that doesn't have its own PA, it's a nightmare.
It's garbage.
It's garbage. And it truly affects your show. Like, it really does. If people can't hear what the ring announcer is saying clearly, concisely, I mean, you obviously have to have a good ring announcer, but you can't overstate how important sound is at a wrestling show. Entrance music. Even the house music, like it was very nitpicky. It was like, okay, we're going to do this and then we'll pause it. And Josh would pause the music and he'd make everybody take note. He's like, listen. And people would just be kind of rustling and getting antsy. And then somebody would start a chant. And it's like, oh, the show's going to start. Oh. And he's like, are you ready? Gorillas. And it was always like Gorillas or Sublime or something. He'd just hit play and it's like, okay, Smoke Two Joints comes on. And people, and he's like, he's so pleased with himself, but it's that little stuff. Yeah, it made a difference, man. Like it made people just want it that much more, and that's all. That's what it's always about. Leave them wanting more, but don't send them home like unhappy too many times. Yeah, hopefully the good outweigh the bad. You're gonna have some bad, but hopefully
right. Yeah, no, I remember mostly good from 2CW. So I mean, you guys all did great, So it was a good company, and it had a good run and ended strong, and it was good. It was definitely good.
Thanks for coming out. Thanks for spending your hard-earned dollars at Sports Circle Wrestling over the years. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I had to. I got to meet so many people through that company. The people I used to watch on TV, all the way to the people that that ended up that are on TV now. It's just or in new companies now.
Yeah. That's
the people like Brew Van Slyke. Watching them. From when we're in the back now, and here comes this hulking dude walking by us, and I'm like, I've been watching you for like 10 years. You know what I mean? It's awesome. The stuff like Sean Carr and just. I used to be like, oh my God, the Sean Carr dude is amazing, and now like I see him, and he's like, hey,
didn't we just like interview him?
Yeah, we did. He's been on the show. We've interviewed him. It's I get to see him, and he's
good dude. So, seriously good dude. So they've been doing Chris Lovins was one of the guys in the 2CW office.
I was going to ask you about Chris.
So they've been doing the Remembering 2CW podcast because obviously everybody's been stuck inside and we need things to do, and everybody loves to wax poetic about these things. And of course, I mean, obviously I'm guilty of it too. So Sean Carr was on there last night, and just it reminded me of when he first started and how he sent a message. Like he asked when he could show up to set up chairs. And that is so crucial to any young wrestlers trying to be in the business. Is not only like, should you be consistent and just show up as much as you can, but like show up and do something. So this dude wanted a shot on the show. So he's willing to show up and help set up the ring and help set up chairs and do whatever there is and go get food coloring for Tajiri or whatever it is that we need. That was me, but that's the weird stuff that you need that like, I heard an interview with Harvey Whippleman, who's just on After the Bell with Corey Graves. That's like his job. He's like, well, I'll do what people need. They need food. I'll go get food with them. It's like, yeah, dude, that is so necessary. Sometimes sometimes Sammy Callahan needs to print 8x10, so he's got to go to like Rite Aid. So you take him to Rite Aid, and then he invites you to Jersey the next day for a shoot interview that he's doing. And it's like, well, I can't go, but thanks, man. And then you see him years later, and he still remembers you because you made an impression, and that's what Sean Carr did, and that's why he got to where he became champ. I mean, he earned his spot, definitely.
Right.
Brute Van Slyke, just because you mentioned his name really quick, I have always been a fan of Brute Van Slyke, both his tag and his singles work. I've always been a fan of the person. He's a good guy. As far as I've known him, we've traveled a lot together. We've done a lot of cool stuff together. But recently in wrestling, I've been hanging out with another good guy, Moonlight Sun, Mike Skyros.
We've had him
Good
on the
guy.
show.
Yep.
Friend of the show.
Would like to interview him again, to be honest.
So that's probably why. We were less ugly then. So I love him. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's the attitude era kind of summed up in up perfectly. Yeah, because have you gone back and watched some, like I have recently, quite a bit actually? I'm like, that really didn't age well there,
right? Yeah.
Rocky. That did not age well at all, bud.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, it's calling Eddie Guerrero Mexican jumping bean, I believe, and I was like,
oh yeah,
I don't think that would really fly too well today, but
yeah, it's not flying in 2020.
No, it's not happening. A lot of you could just cut out a few years of Goldust's career and those things, like when he was wearing the G strings and stuff. Like,
oh yeah,
it does not age well. And
no,
and for me, I was like 12 years old, or however old I was young, so I was all about it. But as you're very right, as the years go on, it becomes harder to defend. Which is like, it's nice that there's stuff now that you can point to and people will be like, oh yeah, like I think all elite wrestling has a bit of that. It's again the alternative. Because I keep tabs on WWE. I don't watch it religiously, but I definitely keep an eye on it. And I watched Money in the Bank, obviously.
I did. Yeah,
I caught some some of the stuff on Raw. I'll tune into NXT here and there for bits at a time, but yeah.
What did you think of Money in the Bank while we're on it, while we're mentioning it?
I have our tallies, by the way.
Oh,
did you guys place wagers?
Well, I won the bet. There was no bet. So my bet is that Garrett owes me a bet for the next time we do this, for the next pay-per-view, which I believe is Backlash.
I will literally bet anything, but I'm not slap betting Stu. I'm not.
Well,
I've seen Stu slap people, and I'm not taking it.
I have piano hands.
Yeah,
I have piano hands. I'm sorry.
You've been keeping them low, so I haven't seen them. But yeah, those are.
Those are. Nope. No.
And I don't like.
I watched him slap someone to the ground. Like I'm like.
It's all those Jushin Thunder Liger matches, man. I'm just telling you. Ah!
But. I mean, overall, it seemed like, like pretty decent. Stu, I know you said you wanted to say something about the cinematic match style.
Oh, the Money in the Bank matches? Well, I mean, we could talk about Money in the Bank and get to that thing that happened that apparently people, kind of divisive, but apparently a lot of people liked it. I'm kind of like this with it.
The murder? You talking about the murder?
The double murder, the double homicide. There's that. I started watching it, especially when the guys started in the workout room. I was like, all right, how is this gonna go? And it wasn't bad, to be honest. I thought Ray did some.
I was okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah, Ray did some cool stuff with Alistair. I'm a big Alistair Blackmark, by the way, so don't mind me.
Same.
But I thought that was cool. I think the women's one started out cool with Asuka, who is, as I've gone on record saying, the most valuable player of this empty arena phase that we're going through at WWE. I've always loved Asuka. Just super happy for her. But with her jumping off and taking everybody out with the crossbody, she's over his shit. So it started off well. Then, the Brother Love cameo I laughed at. Then the Doink the Clown that's not Doink the Clown, I was like, all right, that's stupid. And then John Laurinaitis and the food fight, man. I saw Otis scream food fight, and I just fast-forwarded. Until they were on the roof.
Yeah. Got
some of its credibility back. Nia Jax, also divisive figure, kind of beating up Lacey and Asuka. Corbin throwing Ray and Alistair over the roof to fall on a smaller roof, just under the big roof. I'm like, come on, guys. But I did enjoy seeing Asuka kick Corbin in his face multiple times. Although that whole thing didn't really make sense, but I just like seeing Asuka kick anybody in the face.
Yeah.
And then the whole, having Otis win, if they have him cash in and go for the tag titles as Heavy Machinery, and they don't turn Tucker on Otis, I'm happy. I'm throwing a lot out there. I'm happy. I guess I'm fine with it. It's different, but I just don't. I think they've just been kind of trying to ride this whole Otis Mandy wave, mostly because the roster's so small right now, because how everything's going right now. I don't know. It was good and it was bad.
Yeah. Speaking on that, it's just like that match in general. I mean, like the cinematics, I'm okay with it because I recognize the product's not really for me, and I do like a new approach to wrestling anytime that you can put it out there.
Right.
Yeah, I love the Gargano Ciampa one on NXT.
I still haven't seen that, but
it's a little long in the tooth. It's a little long in the tooth, but it's a fight, and that's all it is.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the Randy Orton Edge was 40 minutes, like something like that. So does it rival that in terms of length? Is it close to that?
A little bit shorter, but not much. It took up like 45 minutes, but you had some commercial breaks in there, I think, when I was watching it.
Gotcha. I mean, I just imagined it was good. Those two have such a history of matches, but it's kind of like an Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano match. I've seen it. And it's not going to be high priority for me to sit and watch, but this I actually did because I knew I was going to be talking to you guys, and I was interested in the concept. And it was like, okay,
so was I. I popped so hard when I saw the leaked set footage of them like going all the way up the building, getting to the roof. I was like, that is insanity, and they can screw this up real bad or make it awesome, or both. Yeah. And they did both. So
yeah. It kind of reeks of that like WWF kind of cheese, you know?
Yeah,
it's got that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's okay depending on which side of the timeline you like to keep your eyes on. You know, if you're a person who thinks the past is always better, then you're going to kind of get down with it. But like the food fight, I mean, it was a bit much. I mean, I love Paul Heyman.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
I'm a Paul Heyman guy.
Yeah, unnecessary, but like definitely the doink thing made it weird too. I didn't enjoy that at all. But the food fight was kind of, to me, and this, I mean, I don't know if other people feel this way, but like I feel like we're playing up the Otis weight thing. Oh yeah. And it's not a thing where I feel like they're intentionally trying to fat shame him, but I feel like there can't help but be that kind of overtone that's not being put out there plain as day.
He's that big egg-shaped guy that, you know what I mean, that why not? You know, it's like, it's not cool.
And to have him win the way that he did, like, I understand the idea and I understand the story of it. It's not that I like wholeheartly disagree with it, but it's like, you're not really doing that guy any favors, not having him have like, he could just as well not have won, and everybody would be fine with it. You know, Otis doesn't need to win to be over. He's already over.
Oh, yeah.
The people want him. So you don't, and if you're going to push him to the moon, then that's great. Like, it seems like with all of the empty arena stuff, they're really trying to take some risks and be different. A, the cinematic stuff, but B, like putting the titles on McIntyre and Braun. I think Braun is a bit like, I think he's a bit shy on the promo stuff. Like, I feel like he could get there. But there's a certain level that, like, there's the Cena, you know, for me, as far as a guy who can work the stick and be professional and be out there being a PR man for the company, because ultimately as a champion, you have to be that. So, like, when I see Braun Strowman doing ads on Instagram and things like that, and it seems like this weird juxtaposition of this monstrous man trying to, like, shill things to me, it's like, I don't know if I'm about it. I'm just trying to think of it from, like, an office standpoint. It's like, okay, well, where are we going with this? And into the Bray feud, which was an interesting match.
Much better than people are going to give it credit for.
Yeah, Bray is such a good worker. I mean, they're both great workers, but Bray's work, like the way he incorporates his characters, and the fact that he went out there and wrestled in like that weird tiny sweater. I mean, you can't overlook that. Like, that's the fact that he is drawing a clear line between working as Bray Wyatt and working as the Fiend. Like, they're two different work styles.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're not going to see the Fiend bust out a tornado DDT, which that site is still just tucked in my head of Wyatt giving a tornado DDT to Braun Strowman. I'm like, that's wild. Okay.
Didn't think I'd see that today.
Yeah.
Here we are.
So then to move forward to then Raw, obviously the biggest thing that happened, and maybe even the only thing we need to recap before we get to tonight's top 5 is what do you guys think about the way they moved over move the belt over to Asuka, and the fact that and how Becky announced her pregnancy?
I mean, I love it.
I think they like to get way too personal with Becky Lynch.
Yeah, I personally, I think it was as perfect as can be, and I actually feel bad that when she got to make the announcement, it was to an empty arena.
Yeah,
because you know what I mean. Like that deserves. I always have baby fever. I'm always excited about babies. So like the fact, and I know I've heard like Kate was listening to the show this morning on K-Rock, and she said that Cody said he thinks that she's making a mistake, and I mean I disagree. I think if you're a female wrestler and you want to have a baby, now is the perfect time. Sure. Not plus if you add into it where the fact that no matter how good your whole shtick can be, eventually everything gets stale. So her being the longest running Raw Women's Championship and being the man Becky Lynch, that would eventually get stale and come down. Mm-hmm. She vacates the belt now, and the Money in the Bank winner gets to be the champ, and she goes away while this is all still going on. She comes back in a year and a half or 2 years, and that music comes on, dude, the whole place is going to lose it. She's going to get an insane pop. She's going to come back. It's going to be awesome. And, it's just I couldn't think of a better time for her to do it than when she is on top. And with this going on, it's the perfect opportunity, in my opinion. That's my opinion of the whole situation. So I don't know how anyone else feels about it, but
I will say I'm happy that Charlotte. I've never been happier that Charlotte Flair was the NXT Women's Champion than I am right now with Asuka being the Raw Women's Champion, because that means I'm going to use my swear card. WWE can't fuck up Charlotte by having her lose to or by having Asuka lose to Charlotte. So that makes me happy. Yes. At least I don't think they can. I might just jinx myself.
I don't see why they would. She's been popping up on both shows, so apparently she's going to be on SmackDown. But it's like she doesn't need to. She doesn't need to, and they don't. I don't know. I don't know what.
I don't know why you had Liv Morgan lose to Charlotte either, when it seems like they were kind of trying to build Liv slowly, and then you just have her get squashed on a random Monday. I don't know.
Charlotte's just super over.
She's great. I can't hate on her.
Charlotte's my favorite, but I still don't want them to book her wrong. Or there's 3 women championships. I don't want whoever should be here or who if these 3 women should be champ. It's you don't need to mess around certain Well, you don't need to take the belt away from Asuka just to have Charlotte be the champ. You know what I mean? Just to put another belt on her. You know what I mean?
Oh, I wasn't saying that was going to happen. I was being pretty facetious when I said that.
Yeah, but it's rooted in truth. They'll do that. They'll absolutely do it.
They you never know. Yeah.
They like to feed. They like to feed people to Charlotte.
They do. Okay. Part of me feels like they're just trying to kind of blaze the Charlotte trail so hard that it kind of makes up for some of Rick's misgivings. Yeah. Which is this weird, I have anything to substantiate that at all, but it's just the way that I feel.
No, she's absolutely going to end up with at least having 16 titles.
She got 10. I mean, numbers are numbers, to be honest.
Yeah.
She's at least going to end up having 16. If not, then having 17.
I mean, at this point, I don't think I think the point is proven. I mean, there's nothing more they can really do to slam her over on people, and that's why I don't think they'll hesitate to put her over on a Liv Morgan, because Liv is just kind of she's on the up. Charlotte's a mate. She's made. She doesn't need to do she's got to show up drunk to some conventions or something to really kind of take her down or overstay her welcome, which, like, to your point about Becky Lynch, is, for me, that bloom is off the rose. Like, I'm over the whole man thing, and I think it's great, and it sells T-shirts. It puts asses in seats, and it's a great face to have on the company because she can go out and do press. And these are the things that I feel like have to be considered, because you need that. You need somebody who's going to be a face of the company, because it's not Vince McMahon anymore. And it can be Stephanie, but Stephanie and Hunter, they're doing all sorts of different things. Like, and they have on-air characters that they need to. Anyway.
Anywho.
Yeah, how they chose to do it, I thought was cool, because they didn't just make the announcement for the pay-per-view. They didn't build that in any way. They left it as a surprise for Raw. I mean, obviously, who knows when they got the news?
Yeah,
I don't keep a finger on the pulse of anything like that, so I don't know if there were rumors floating around that this was a thing. But
I do keep my finger on that pulse, as disgusting as it can be. But I had heard nothing at all about it. I found it kind of weird that she wasn't at Money in the Bank. I'm like, why is Bayley defending the SmackDown Women's Championship, but Becky's not doing the Raw? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, without any sort of build to it or any sort of mention and an angle or anything. It's kind of weird.
I had heard that she was coming back on Raw early because she was actually, like, getting time off that had been long overdue, quote unquote. But hindsight being 2020, it all makes sense now.
Sure. Right. Yeah. And that's not the immediate conclusion that you'll have. I know I was surprised. And then I watched the video and I popped huge for it. I thought it was really cool. And I think that they kayfabed Asuka. I don't think that they told her. I think that they wanted to get that genuine reaction. And, like, for her to have that genuine reaction is great. It's great. You can't make that up. You can't write that into the script.
That looked like a real reaction, you know. Whether they were like,
from a friend,
she can't go, and Asuka probably was like, okay, you know, and roll with the punch. But then for her to say that, like, that looked like genuine surprise, you know.
And if it wasn't good on her,
bad, like, I kind of wish, like I understand that that's Asuka's moment to be the champ, that's her moment to announce that, but I kind of feel like if, you know, there was no one else there, like, or no people there, like, maybe some other wrestlers should have came out. You know, maybe more of the female wrestlers should have came out. You know what I mean? Maybe the announcers could have been standing, like, just something to, like, I don't know, like, I love babies. I'm huge on announcements. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I just thought it could have been, like, it was awesome. It was awesome, and I think it was perfect. But, like, you know,
they could have done confetti.
It would have been cooler if there was just a little more spectacle to it, to let her, you know, have the announcement and have her go off, and, you know.
If I can be a little cynical, just real quick, I'm just going to be cynical and say that Asuka always does have her big moments overshadowed by bigger moments. So Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch being pregnant.
Right.
It's unfortunate. But I think that in the fans' mind, nobody, like, I mean, I am always going to be in her corner, because her work speaks for itself. So, like, they can dick her around as much as they want. It's not going to make a difference to me, because she's just top notch. And the character work she's doing right now is just so good. Yeah, you can't teach that. That's just turning the volume all the way up, and her being her is more than enough to carry the belt. But I thought
she could teach the master class and how to be, you know, how to just be over, you know. Yeah. But yeah, so I think we're getting to that time where it's I think it's time for the top five.
I gotta pause you for a second though, Garrett, because as shocking as that title change by Asuka was, here's our top 5 shocking championship moments. Man, I thought it was gonna sound better.
But yeah, so yeah,
this segue was gold.
I was there for it. I liked it.
All right, so then this week's top 5 is your favorite top 5 unexpected championship wins. So Justin, you want to lead us off since you're the guest?
Am I doing all 5?
Yeah, you go from 5 to 1.
5-1. Okay. So, I mean, unexpected championship wins. I mean, I guess that's in the eye of the beholder, sans like Money in the Bank. So I just tried to do my best here. I'm going to look down at my phone.
It's very loose. Our top fives are generally pretty loose. You have a lot of creative freedom.
I need a little bit of wiggle. Thank you very much. So 5, I would say when Jericho won the Undisputed, and he went over The Rock in Austin in the same night. Mm-hmm. What was that? Vengeance 2001. That surprised me, and it made Chris Jericho. Definitely. And at that point, I mean, I was like 10 or 11 years old. 4 would be when Foley won the title on Raw, even though they gave it away on Nitro. It became a thing. Yeah, total dick. But it became a thing where I said to myself, "Is that real? Is that going to happen?" And because I was a huge Mankind fan, Mick Foley is just top-notch guy. Always enjoyed him.
Super nice guy.
What would that make? 3, Zack Ryder when he won the IC title at WrestleMania.
Yes.
Mania 32. Yes. I just love Zack Ryder. He's a guy who has always plugged away at it, and he's definitely not gotten the fair shake that he deserves.
He's going to land on his feet.
Yeah. I think he will. I think he'll do well. He's carved out this little niche in the wrestling culture that is really working for him. And I wish him nothing but the best because that's super cool. 2, Seth Rollins over Reigns and Lesnar when he cashed in the Money in the Bank. I thought I had to include a Money in the Bank. That was Mania 31. I rewatched that finish and I really liked it. I liked how they kind of kept Brock strong. Like he still showed weakness, but they kept him strong by not having him take the pinfall. It was Reigns. I don't remember any of the specifics surrounding it. But my number 1, the first thing that came to my mind when you told me this, is WrestleMania 9 when Yokozuna beat Hulk Hogan for the world title because of the photographer with the flashbulb. Oh, he got up on the apron and he took the picture and it was the big fire spot into Hogan's face. Yoko beats him and he hits him with the leg drop. And there's a dude in the front row completely dressed in Hulk Hogan gear with the yell, like he is a spitting image of Hulk Hogan. And to watch the devastation cross his face when he's realizing that Yokozuna, this huge heel, who I was a big fan of, in my mind, in my childhood, he's a big reason that I gravitated towards wrestling because he was just so beat the piss out of people. I love watching that guy dressed like Hogan watch his hero lose. That's terrible of me.
That's great.
That's wrestling.
Great. That's great. I love it. Stu, how about you, buddy?
All right. So I always try to just give some context here. Try not to talk about stuff before I started watching wrestling, or while I wasn't watching it. So it's pretty WWE heavy here.
Mine is all WWE. So
yeah.
And also, when shocking title changes, I mean, WCW had a lot of shocking title changes that were also stupid.
Right.
So you're not going to see any David Arquette on this because that was just plain stupidity as much as it was shocking.
Yeah, it was an honorable mention on mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't stupid.
Number 5, I was a little bit older, 2002, so I was like 19. Survivor Series when Big Show beat Brock when Heyman turned on Big Show.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
that surprised me. That surprised me. Also, I have Seth cashing in on Brock and Reigns at WrestleMania as well because I didn't really watch too much at that point in time, so I didn't know it was coming. So that was cool. And it's before everybody did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Number 3 is when Dreamer and Raven beat the Dudley Boys on ECW's TNN debut as the Dudley Boys were out the door to WWE. And they won the tag titles because I love Raven and I love Dreamer and I love that feud. So, of course, I got to love them. Like I said, I was like 17 when it happened, so it was great. When Jericho won, not the undisputed title, this is kind of cheating, but when he beat Triple H on that Raw to win the title and then had it instantly taken away from him because they bullied Hebner into reversing his decision.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that now, yeah.
Yep. Big Jericho mark as well. So, that made me super happy, like the highest of highs and then the lowest of lows.
Yeah. Right. That's what they wanted. It was bad.
And
definitely what they were aiming for.
Also the one that instantly came to my mind because I was still, I was susceptible to believing things. Like I knew wrestling was fake, but just didn't know the business. So the most shocking title change to me was when Psycho Sid pinned Bret Hart after he had just won the belt the night before on Raw's War, because Austin cost Bret the title, and that set up Bret versus Austin at WrestleMania 13, and it set up Undertaker to take the belt from Sid at WrestleMania 13 as well. I remember seeing that happen and being like, I love Bret Hart, but he's kind of being a whiny bitch right now. I also love watching Psycho Sid powerbomb people, and I also love Austin. So I wasn't quite sure who to like at that point.
Right.
But that, to me, that's number one shocking title change.
Yeah.
That's funny because I'm listening to the Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. It's the Bret Hart 96-97. So that's super fresh in my mind. They talked about they talked all about that right now. I was just listening to that before I talked to you guys. So that's wild. Yeah, he was kind of being that was the general feel that Pritchard puts out there, is that Bret was being super whiny at the time and was kind of dragging his feet on a couple different things. But I was a Bret fan too, so I see it. Garrett, what do you think?
I love the Hart Foundation too.
Yeah. All right, so my number 5 actually ended up. I was very surprised that Miz cashed in to win the WWE Championship. I mean, most times when people win Money in the Bank, you expect them to get a championship, but some people don't. Some people miss out. They cash in, they don't make it, and it's still surprising that not only that he won it. I mean, he successfully defended it at WrestleMania against Cena. He lost it later on, but still, I was just surprised in general that ever happened. My number 4 was also Mick Foley when he won on Raw. My number 3 is, even in the internet age, and we kind of knew it was coming because you heard about the invasion into India or the push into India, but Jinder Mahal, which is what sparked us talking about. Stu and I were talking about this last week, which is what sparked the idea for this top 5. Still, Jinder Mahal being champ was just crazy, to see. My number 2 is Andrade being NXT champion. I did not see that coming, and him beating Drew McIntyre for it. I was like, not in a million years. And then here he was. Then he became champ. I was like, oh my God, what is going on?
I figured they were going to keep Drew in NXT for just a smidge longer. So I didn't expect Andrade to get it. I know he got
injured and everything, but still, it was the injury or whatever was going on with it. But so my number 1 is actually not a big time championship. I'm going back to the early days of Raw, which is why the Intercontinental Championship is my favorite, because back in the day, it was the only title on Raw. And it was the show title. And so if you were the IC champ, you were the big time guy on Raw. And when Marty Jannetty came out of the crowd and challenged him, wrestled him later that night, Mr. Perfect got, wouldn't let Shawn walk off and take the 10 count so he could keep the title, and Marty Jannetty became the IC champ. And I literally remember jumping off of my couch and just being super excited, because wrestling was real to me then. We're talking, it was May 17th of 1993. I wasn't even 10 yet. I was 9 years old. You know what I mean? I didn't turn 10 until October. I was literally, that little. So to know that, here's this guy that got thrown through the barbershop window. And, now he comes out. I remember when he came out of the crowd and he took his hood off. I got so excited, I got a stomach ache. That's how excited I got. I was excited to see Marty Jannetty, and I was like, oh, man, he's going to go get Shawn Michaels. This is going to be awesome. And then he wins the IC title. And I think he only held it for a couple of weeks, but
very short.
Yeah, but it was still awesome, and I was 9, and it was pure magic to me, and it's still stuck in my head. One of the most surprising things that happened when I was thinking about it. In fact, it was as soon as we were talking about it, I was like, it's going to be Marty Jannetty for me winning the IC title. I had to look up the date though, because I couldn't remember exactly when it happened, but. But yeah, it was great. I very often go back and watch that entire exchange where he comes out of the crowd, and I watch the match later on. Like, I watch it probably every few months. I just go back and watch that clip on YouTube. It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things that ever happened, probably.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. But yeah, and then that's my top 5 for the nights. We were ill prepared, Stu. I don't think we talked about one for next week. So
We did not. That's okay. Give me 5 minutes after we get done here. I'll figure it out.
We'll take you another one. But yeah, Justin, I really appreciate you coming on, man. You're welcome anytime. If you ever just feel like you want to come on and just talk some wrestling with us, you're more than welcome to just be like, to tell us that you want to be on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have just scratched this. I could talk wrestling for days, and it's probably really annoying to most people who don't like wrestling. But, my fiance tolerates it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Luckily, this is a wrestling podcast, so that's what they tune in for. So.
Yes. And there's weird stories I got stories for all sorts of people that came through. I didn't get to drop the DDP story. I'll do that another time.
Oh, I loved meeting that man.
DDP was cool. We got a picture. Did I share that picture recently?
Yes. I believe you did.
DDP, me and Stu with DDP, and and Stu was the WCW watch. Like, he watched it more than I did.
I was a big fan. Yeah, Paige was the guy.
Yeah, and Stu's like, no, you go ahead, you hold the belt. I'm like, I get to hold the big gold belt? Are you kidding me? And Stu's like, nah, you hold it. And I was like, what? And it was awesome. Anytime I get to hold or just touch someone's belt, it's like it burns into my brain. Like, I only got to hold the TNA championship once, and unfortunately, it was the Jeff Hardy belt. But he had it at the time, But it was that ugly Jeff Hardy belt, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm still going to hold the TNA title.
Did you cut yourself on it?
Huh?
Did you accidentally cut yourself on it?
No, I didn't.
All right, you didn't have to go get a tetanus shot or nothing.
No.
All right.
Could have happened.
No, but still, anytime I get to hold the title, it's a big deal. Touch it, see it. It's good stuff. So
yeah, you're number 2 only to Skyros, I think, when it comes to wanting to hold titles.
Give him the belt. He wants them all.
Right. Yeah. Give me your belts. But yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate you having on. So, yeah, we'll be back next week, and please join us. Stu and I will be talking more wrestling, all the good stuff in wrestling news, and yeah.
We got any sponsors to thank, by the way? I don't want to get in trouble. We've just been gabbing like a bunch of old girls.
EJ Moving Company. Visit them at and now I'm trying to talk too fast.
EJAMovingCompany.com, I think.
There you go. Thank you.
I hope that's the website.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Boom.
For all your moving needs.
All right. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all next week.
Justin, have a good night. Garrett, later.